Our next session is dwelling into the key learnings, context, and practical ideas from the Finnish companies on how they thrived during moments of turmoil last year. Let me introduce Maija, Customer and Partner Relationships at RUOKATORT, also the chair of IFMA Finland, and Antti Pitkänen, Insights and Strategy Director at Agile Work, board member of IFMA Finland. They're going to cover on Finnish workplace approach to coping with the pandemic. Tervetuloa. Welcome to Maija and Antti.
Welcome to our session on the Finnish workplace approach to coping with the pandemic. My name is Maija, and I am so excited to be here with you today. A little bit of my background: I'm the president of the IFMA Finland chapter here in Finland, also head of our international relations at RUOKATORT. RUOKATORT is a software company creating software for the real estate industry and helping customers to create best workplaces. I'm also a big enthusiast about work and changing work and workplace in general, and extremely enthusiast golfer.
Delighted to be here as well. My name is Antti Pitkänen. I'm the Chief Experience Officer here at Agile Work, a workplace transformation company. And for the last year or so, I've been also a proud member of the board at the IFMA chapter in Finland. I'm a design decade industrial designer by background, but have been working in the area of workplace transformation for the last 10 years or so. Delighted to be here.
A little bit of our outline and the presentation first. The topic obviously gives you some idea, as Finland has been coping quite well with the pandemic. Obviously, there has been a lot of challenges that we've faced as well, but compared to many countries, and especially on the economic scale, our organizations have been doing quite well.
We prepared a keynote presentation that really shares on some of the key learnings, context, and practical ideas from the Finnish companies, friends, and colleagues that work within the workplace sector, and really to understand how we've been able to thrive during these times of definite turmoil that we've been experiencing for the last year or so. Glad to share some of those insights with you today. What we wanted to go through is a little bit about the past, how we've been actually practicing for this type of crisis like the COVID has presented us since for some thousands of years already. We'll then move on to some of the discussion on present, how companies have adapted to the current pandemic, and then we'll look into some ideas about the future. But let's start a little bit with the past first.
And going very far in the past, first of all, the first Finns who actually started accommodating the country obviously had to face very harsh conditions. If we think about just the weather, for about 6 months, the entire country is covered with ice. This, for example, winter has been no different from that. So finding food or growing anything has been a challenge. The other half of the year, we've been bothered by mosquitoes that haven't let us sleep at all. And maybe coming into the more recent history, we've also faced quite a few invasion tries through our neighboring countries, Russia and Sweden. And we've also survived from those. So I would say we're quite used to the harsh conditions already for thousands and thousands of years. There's a Finnish word called sisu, which describes kind of the perseverance of the people, that we are actually able to cope with all kinds of hard things, and we're very persistent.
Resilience is definitely the key here. Perhaps some facts about Finland. So Finland has the most forest in Europe, and in the history as well, anytime there's been an invading force in Finland, we have run to the forest for shelter, but nowadays also for peace of mind. And during the COVID period, actually, we have found that there's rush hours in the forest. And just to clarify what rush hours in Finland means is that you might see another human being in the forest when you go and visit there. But it's also being a source for getting fresh air, clearing your head, and really trying to find some peace and tranquility in this midst of all of this chaos.
One key thing around what we want to bring you in is the trust that we have, the trust in other people, as well as the trust in authority, which helps obviously during times of crisis. This picture here is actually an example of our president playing ice hockey on a basic Tuesday evening, and the regular people around him who are playing can be just any citizen that you can imagine. And that really brings you the idea how low kind of the threshold is to talk to anyone, and also the trust in authority that we have obviously helps us in obeying kind of to the rules that we may get during times of crisis and so on.
And Maija, actually, I was there when this photo was taken with my 2-year-old son playing ice hockey with the president of Finland. And I thought, only in Finland can this happen.
Absolutely.
But also, we have the lowest population density and one of the third most space per person in Europe, which has really meant that we've had this space and place to move into remote work. And for many people, this has meant also that they've been able to fulfill their lifelong dream to be able to work from their summer cottages somewhere on the archipelago or somewhere in the countryside. But also by the Leaseman Index, actually, one of the critical items when studying the effects of remote work has been that if you had the space to be actually able to work from home, and this is something that we have been able to really work on within the last year or so.
Exactly. And to kind of add on that, there's been also the difference compared to a lot of countries that we have 2 generations usually living together. So majority of the risk groups, which is the elderly people, they have their own homes as well. So that has enabled us probably in relation to having less contamination risk and so on within the households. Finland is actually also the second best in the world in using information and communication technologies to boost competitiveness and well-being. This example here is from World Championships of throwing cell phones. You probably all know the history with Nokia, but just to bring you also into the idea that we can use technology in multiple ways. And obviously that's sports, isn't it? So an example of well-being. Credits in this photo go to Eija Laakso, and the person in the picture is Sanni Hussein.
And obviously, we've been really practicing on the social distancing, for instance, first from the history, and it's deeply rooted in our culture. And discussing with our colleagues, actually, quite a lot of the people have been saying that they're really looking forward to the post-pandemic time when we can go from the 2-meter rule back to the 3-meter rule that we actually socially comfortable with. So this is an actual photo of a bus stop used by Nissan to promote their automatic distance control feature in their new cars.
And Antti, I have to say that's actually a nice weather, but even if it was raining cats and dogs, that still would be the same distance control, I'd say.
Definitely.
The next theme that we're going to talk about is gender equality. Finland is the 3rd most gender equal country in the world. We actually have 47% of members in the parliament that are women. 12 out of our 19 ministers in the government are women. About 49 of all employed people are women, and a third of entrepreneurs in Finland are actually women, which is exceptional even on a global scale. There's also the important or interesting fact that according to, for example, a study that has been done by Harvard Business Review, and it was released in December, but women leaders are actually considered coping better in situations of crisis, or they're leading the countries or organizations better in situations that are actually harder. And even if it's not a crisis, according to that review, women leaders actually scored better in 13 out of 19 components when it comes to leadership efficiency. So we're pretty well doing on that front.
No, we're definitely not afraid of strong female leaders. We support, as we can see from our all-female cabinet represented here that has led us through these moments of crisis. But also remote work. So we've been top 5 in the statistics, even prior to COVID, on countries that do most remote work. And actually these studies during the COVID period have also shown that actually most of the people have felt that it has beneficially improved their well-being and also productivity. And I think it's an interesting statistic in many ways, because we've been really able to thrive in these moments of crisis, and actually people be happy and quite happy working from remotely and working from their homes or their country cottages.
Yep, that comes down to many of those factors that we've already mentioned, which is having a lot of space, having a well-functioning infrastructure. Internet connection actually seems to be one of the biggest challenges for most employees in different parts of the world. But luckily, we've done a really good job there also before we knew about a global crisis as such. This guy here, maybe some of you are familiar with, maybe not all. He's Mr. Kimi Räikkönen, a Formula One driver. And as you can clearly see from this picture, he's smiling. That depicts the fact that we Finns actually are not necessarily best at showing that we're happy. The expressions on our face, or shouting it out to the world, may not always be there. But in lots of studies, for example, World Happiness Report that is published every year, in 2015 century, Finland has scored or been in the top 5 and actually held the first place 3 times. The previous report actually was one of those ones where Finland was rated the happiest country on Earth. There's lots of these dimensions that we've talked about around trust, welfare, low bureaucracy, lots of freedom, and things like that we built really throughout the hundreds and thousands of years of our existence, that has helped us coping in around with this pandemic.
The next results will be published on the 20th of March, so it will be interesting to see how the COVID has actually influenced those results as well.
Absolutely.
But let's talk about a little bit about the present. So how have the Finnish companies really adapted to the current pandemic, and what are the key learnings that we can learn from them?
This here is koronavilkku. Basically a straight translation, it's COVID or Corona blink. This is a digital app for contact tracing that was developed by the Finnish Institute for Health and Welfare. It's been downloaded 2.5 million times. And for those who don't know, Finland, we have a little over 5 million people. So basically that tells us about a very good adoption rate. Again, we think this goes back to the fact that we're not afraid of being monitored or followed, because we do trust the authority. We also want to contribute for the common good. And we are very quick in adapting new types of solutions or tools. And obviously, this has been one of the key things in finding out whether you've been exposed and being able to quarantine people and so on. It's a huge number of downloads, I would say.
Also, the office furniture suppliers have been quick to respond, and they have started to equip homes and offices and create flexible lease plans to equip those homes for height adjustable tables and ergonomic chairs. And actually companies as well have taken policies in which they allow employees to take their workstations or even do home delivery for them during the periods of lockdown and isolation. So companies have really taken the home working ergonomics seriously as well.
This is one of my favorite examples, and we're also going out of the knowledge work and out of the office sector. Hokeland is the largest regional cooperative store in the S Group, and it actually employs about 6,000 people with 340 outlets. They have hotels, restaurants, grocery stores, and so on. And when COVID hit us, they were actually super fast in reallocating those employees from restaurant and hotel segments that were mandatorily closed during lockdown into new jobs within, for example, grocery stores. That actually allowed them to keep all the job people working, basically meaning that they avoided 800 people being laid off. They also did a number of other very important tasks around communication, people obviously in the stores being in contact with people, maybe really worried about their own safety and health. So they created their own COVID line that's open 7 days. Employees actually reported on getting more information and more accurate information from this channel than what they got from the media or for local authority. They also did a lot of campaigns to avoid rush hours in stores, that they brought those online. They had information for risk groups on shopping times that basically were just intended for their shopping, and lots of other measures that they created for their employees as well as for everybody visiting their stores to be safe.
And home deliveries for groceries have increased immensely during this time as well, to really keep those employees at home also and families fed during these times of COVID. One example as well that we wanted to bring out is GE Healthcare here in Finland, a company that manufactures respiratory machines and anesthesia equipment for hospitals. And companies really have acted really swiftly and securely to any possible contamination and to ensure continuity within this. Because obviously some of these activities are really critical, and a lot of the work as well is of the kind that we cannot actually take fully remote. So some of these companies have actually taken on that they've created these extreme sanitation measures that if there is any possible exposure or contamination, that directly they collaborate with sanitation companies to act immediately to clean out possible areas of contamination.
Also, one thing around healthcare that's important to point out is how quickly the hospitals were able to educate nurses and other people to move into new types of tasks and help around COVID patients. And I think that comes down to the fact that we in Finland is very well known about great education. We are learning that since we're kids, we're quickly adapting to new types of solutions, and we're eager to learn more. So that also enabled quick response in healthcare. So going into more of the organization culture, this example here is on Rumble, Finland, a company that actually wanted to foster the culture, although people were working remote. What they did is they created a campaign or this type of charity-related effort where they encourage all their employees to go for a run or for a walk. They posted pictures on social media, they recorded all the kilometers they ran or walked, and the company actually donated €2 per kilometer to a charity that was helping families that were in crisis due to COVID. So a huge act kind of brings people together and creates that feeling of cohesiveness. Also, there's a lot of other examples on fostering organization culture. As we're not together, lots of companies created events virtually immediately after the crisis. So virtual afternoon coffees, afterworks, Christmas parties online, etc. So that really enabled people to still have that chit chat that may not be happening, obviously, because we're not seeing people at the office.
Many of the workplace and office providers have also been acting and responding to the crisis, and they've been starting to develop aggregate services and office solutions that particularly are geared towards well-being. And this is an example of Technopolis developing the Technopolis Balanced line, aggregating really different types of well-being promoting services and product offering for their customers.
As bigger operators, we're doing all kinds of things, enabling, shared and distributed work already during COVID. Also, smaller operators did that. One of the big dreams of people living in Finland has been the fact that you could really work from Lapland, the cleanest air in the world. A place where you have peace, you have the ability to exercise in your free time, lots of space, etc. And as mentioned earlier, the boom for acquiring summer cottages or working from somewhere else than the cities has been huge in Finland. At the same time, people do need office types of environments where they can work from, and smaller operators like this one here, Innovation Home Levy, has actually created settings where people can then work from and have that office-like environment, even if you're living somewhere far from the cities. There's also great examples on companies putting quickly together campaigns, and it's kind of unfortunate they realized this maybe only during COVID, but the fact that you can really work from anywhere, there's a lot of job recruits where the company says, you can work from anywhere, whether it's Lapland or somewhere else in the world that you want to go to. And this way they're able to attract the best talent that's available. And again, that's obviously key for Finnish organizations, creating business, which obviously a lot of that happens outside our own boundaries.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the future. It's obviously very difficult to predict, but maybe something that the future might, how the future might turn out for us. One of the examples that we wanted to share is a Futures platform, like a Finnish-based startup that gathers and collects and facilitates use of Future Foresight data for companies. And definitely what we see is that in the future, these companies will be, companies that work in the real estate and in workplaces will actually be using this kind of strategic data for decision making. They also made it publicly available, their access to their data, particularly gearing towards the implications that COVID has. This is a great tool to use if you want to visit that later on.
Other examples on digital solutions, Rapal developed a app to enable safe use of office space also during the pandemic. This was quickly developed and then also launched and started to use by multiple large organizations, again, enabling a mobile interface for employees to pre-book desks before going into the office, limiting the number of people that can go in. Again, enabling that social distancing. These types of apps and in general, the data will become even more important in the future. There's a lot of signs on the fact that people will and have changed the way they work. It's also going to mean different types of spaces that we need within the office, and being able to use, for example, sensors or other IoT data to collect information post-COVID will help the organizations to do better decisions on their space use and obviously serving their employees in a better way as well.
Also, within the indoor air quality, what has become, what will be becoming more important is actually monitoring, but also communicating the indoor air quality. But with the use of AI, we can actually predict and model a little bit the behavior and possible critical elements that might rise up, and really to ensure safer use and safer return to the workplaces in the future.
Talking about exercising remotely, we saw an example of Rumble folks doing run separate but together. The same idea here, as we are all remote and we're not able to attend those hobbies and group activities that we normally have. Cuckoo Workout is an app that gives you examples and ideas on how you can exercise, for example, throughout the workday. Demand for these types of online, easy to use exercise apps has grown significantly. Just Cuckoo has reported a number of users, daily users, increasing by 70% just in March, and new users increase has been 30%. So that tells us the fact that we want to feel well, we want to be fit, even though we're not going to the office and we're not be able to kind of use the regular types of sporting facilities during times of crisis. This again teaches us new different ways to make sure that we can be well and make sure that we can exercise enough.
Obviously, virtual reality and collaboration will become also much more mainstream than it has been. And what really is happening here in Finland, we are combining two different skill sets. It's skill sets from technology and also from gaming into creating collaborative environments where we can actually develop new things. And there's been some really interesting developments on that side, and we sure are going to see many more of them in the future.
Mentioning some additional apps that we've integrated into our daily lives. Nightingale Health, for example, has developed preventive health analytics to enable safer returns to work post-lockdowns and post-COVID. There's other examples as well. The idea that you're really giving tools for employees to analyze their health and well-being, to understand whether you can go to the office, and so on. Also, Finnish organizations are required to report sick leaves, and the reason behind that as well. So we're kind of mandatorily tracking the number of COVID cases within the organizations, if there are any.
Part of this move and evolution towards hybrid ways of working and has really required quite a lot of new skills on digital facilitation. And one of the platforms that has been growing, I believe they had 1,000% increase in the spring already, has been Workspace, that really enables organizations to carry out co-development activities, co-creative activities to develop new solutions, and as well support for change. And it's something really interesting within workplace transformation as well, where we actually need to lead change within organizations, is how we actually learn how to adapt these new types of tools.
And that becomes key when you're recruiting people from anywhere in the country. You have to have ways to share, collaborate, and work remotely in a very efficient way. One final example is around NCC Wieland. We see a lot of property development companies and construction companies investing into digital solutions, creating a better experience for the people using the facilities. They may be around these types of health apps, etc., but also using the data, optimizing the buildings, optimizing their indoor air quality, etc., to make sure that the buildings are operating in an optimal way, but also to attract those people also to the office once that's allowed.
But what has the pandemic really changed? In many ways, work and leisure has merged together. The places where we work no longer matters so much. The role of offices as a work environment is definitely changing. Some of the elements of community that we emphasize is really important and how we support that. But we also must set aside time for meetings and free-form discussions, some of that serendipity that really makes the organizations thrive.
Antti, I'm going to throw a big question at you, because we've shown how Finland has coped rather well, and we've had great inventions and organizations adopting new practices. We're basing kind of our assumption also on the fact that we've done this for hundreds of years and created that good working ground for even situations that we're facing right now. Do you think other countries and organizations outside Finland will be able to use some of these examples or teachings or lessons in their own activity and operations?
Well, I definitely hope so. There's a lot of key learning that has been happening within the last year. And in many ways, companies have actually taken a huge leap 10, 20 years into the future during 1 year. So it's not going to be that easy. But what I would really hope from this event as well is that we actually share knowledge, because there's a lot we can learn from other countries as well. And it's really about collecting small things, big things, and important different kinds of aspects and key learnings from different organizations and putting it all together, because I think we'll be better prepared if in the future anything of similar nature happens.
Absolutely. Well, I think to conclude, we hope that you have enjoyed the session with us, and definitely hope to get some feedback and connect on LinkedIn and everywhere else to exchange these ideas that Antti mentioned, to be able to learn from others. So on my behalf, thank you so much for attending, and hope to network with you virtually before again seeing each other physically.
Thank you. It's been a real pleasure to attend this event.